All right.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for spending this gloomy Thursday evening with us. Super happy to be able to put on this event to share with everybody what happens to electronics, appliances, and other things. My name is Heather Grobham. I am the co-chair of the Tangletown Neighborhood Association Environmental Committee. We have three lovely guests with us who have agreed and graciously offered their time to share with us some information about electronic waste. We have Amanda Cotton, who is the Electronic Waste Coordinator for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. She's worked for the Control Agency for 16 years, coordinating Electronics Recycling Act, which is super cool. So get a little bit of information there with her. I'm hearing that my audio is a little choppy, so I apologize.
That's better.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll just hold my phone like this then. We also have Kelly Kish, the recycling coordinator for the city of Minnesota. We've worked with Kelly on several different things with the environmental committees, so she's been a great partner to the Tangletown Environmental Committee. Maria Jensen is the recycling electronics for climate action. And so with the Tangletown Neighborhood Association, what we are currently involved in is Green Partners grant with Hennepin County. And our focus this year has been to really get information out to folks about e-waste. This was all born from an event that we threw last fall, realizing that people really had no idea where to put their electronics waste. So right now, what we've been focusing on is water quality, waste reduction, energy efficiency, environmental justice. So right now, managing waste from electronics and appliances, which is what we're getting into this evening. Another thing that we also do, if anybody is interested, they can feel free to go onto the Tangletown Neighborhood Association website and sign up for the Sustainability SAM blog and email blast that we throw out. Also, the Tangletown Environmental Committee has a solar rebate going on right now within the bounds of our neighborhood. So there is information on our website about that as well. If anybody is interested in joining us and getting more information from us, we meet the second Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. It's always virtual, so makes it a little easier to get to. Yeah. Rick, can we go to the next slide? Fabulous. The panel discussion of resource sharing and the impact of borrowing will be happening next month on the 16th at 7. We will be talking a little bit about what it looks like to share resources, tools, toys, talk about the toys and tool libraries, in addition to trying to get some of our Buy Nothing administrators to come in and really talk about what it looks like to administer and promote a gifting and sharing economy. We also have a Fix-It clinic coming up that you can register for at tingletown.org/ewaste. And then that Fix-It clinic is going to be at St. John's Lutheran Church on the corner of 48th and Nicollet on January 13th from noon to 4. So if anybody's been to a Fix-It clinic, kind of bring a household appliance. Toasters seem to be popular, or any of those small kitchen gadgets or household gadgets that you'd like to not send to the dump or the Herc incinerator, and they'll let you, disassemble and troubleshoot and fix those items. And if you'd like to be entered into the drawing for a $50 gift card to Repowered, please add your name to the chat and we will get you entered there. What do we have here? We're also asking folks to sign an e-waste poll and commitment. So there's a poll that Andrea is going to pop up here. We're also asking you to go into the link posted in the chat to make a commitment to reducing your e-waste. And what that looks like would be attending one of those events that I just talked about, or looking up where to recycle things in a more responsible and better way.
I will get that link in the chat shortly. Do you care if I launch the first poll?
Please, by all means.
Hopefully people can see. The first question is, what do you do with batteries?
Anybody can't see that, just pop a little comment into the chat there.
Oh, I see answers coming in.
I'm being just truthful, sadly, but
That's all we're looking for.
That's right.
Don, I answered
Yeah.
exactly what you answered, and I'm just as ashamed of it.
it's not funny. It's
right.
horrible.
So
Do we have the results?
we have the result. Can everyone see the results, or can just I see the results?
I think just you can see them. I'm just seeing the slide for today's speakers.
All right. So 26% of people, I'll read it quick, and then maybe when I end it, it'll actually display. 26% of you throw them in the garbage. That's a pretty common response. One person, 5% selected, I place them in the recycling. 68% of you bring them to a Hennepin County or other drop-off facility for safe disposal and recycling. And then another 5% of you throw them in a junk drawer. I'm guilty of that one, but I didn't answer, so it's not me. So one of you is like me. Oh, here, I can share the results so everyone can see. Now, can you see it?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. All right, so let's do the next one. How about whose responsibility is it to pay for the proper disposal of e-waste?
I do not see the question.
Oh, it's funny because the question is actually in tiny print. So the question is, whose responsibility is it to pay for the proper disposal of e-waste? Can you see the choices?
I don't see the entire window that the question should be. Like the one previous was perfect. This one I don't see it all. So
Oh no.
Are you in chat?
No, these should be on top of the main slides.
and it's an override, I think.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
I'm sorry that I can't troubleshoot that for you.
And Mark said in the chat that maybe if you're on your phone that you need to swipe right.
Oh, that
Not
could
in
be it.
chat.
All right, I'm going to share the
On the
results here.
computer. Oh, there it is. What'd you do?
Oh, I shared it before you answered. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
You can share it. You can tell us if you're breaking.
At least I see the answers.
All right.
So
Looks like most of us think it's everyone's responsibility. This is good. So we received a grant to do this education series. So this is good information for us to provide back when we report back on the grant. And one more poll. What do you do with e-waste? Can everyone, oh, I don't know. Can everyone see that one?
No.
No?
Nope.
Oh, I need to stop sharing that one. So many buttons. All right.
There we go.
What do you do with e-waste? What do you currently do with electronics and small appliances you're no longer using? And you can have more than one answer.
I know that my deep fryer, my air fryer wouldn't fit in a drawer, so that's not going to be a choice.
And there's no like guilty answers here. It's more about collecting this information so that we can come up with really good solutions and we know what people's barriers are. All right. I think we got everyone. Share the results here. So the majority responses try to repair, give away, and bringing items to a recycling drop-off facility. But kind of an even, I mean, it's not too far off. Those of us in Minneapolis, some of these items we can put out curbside, and then we all have a junk drawer. I think Maria will probably talk about that tonight.
Maria, really?
I have a junk basement.
That too, right? All right, it will not, here we go. All right, so again, I'll add that commitment card in the chat as we hear from our speakers. And we could, whoop, back. So Heather, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Amanda.
fabulous. Yeah. So Amanda, who I had mentioned before, working for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Yeah, she also works at the end of life management policy for carpet, mattresses, batteries, and solar panels. So she is going to be a wealth of knowledge. Shall we start with Amanda?
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna share.
Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Yes, table down. Share. Nice.
Can everybody see Amanda's screen?
Yes.
Fabulous.
I gotta remember how to switch it. This doesn't have the same. Doesn't have my usual drop down where I can say like.
Is it in display settings?
Like being this person. Let's see. Display, mute, stop video, participants, chat, share, pause, summary, apps, more. You're seeing it. Oh, but how do I get it to switch screens? Because I have it on my other one. That's what I need to do. So you don't see this one.
You should be able to have that option while you're sharing. So you may want to unshare and then share again and see what options it gives you. Because you can do like, you can select a specific tab.
Yeah, that's I kind of think I see what you're saying, but okay. Screen 2.
There you go.
How's that? Now you don't
Perfect.
see all yourselves here, do you? I see this band of people, but you see it
Yeah.
perfectly just fine?
I see it great.
I see
Oh,
it great.
Good. And then I can look straight ahead so you don't see me looking off to the side. So this actually works. Thank you, Maria. Thank you everyone for being patient with that. Okay, so Amanda Cotton, and as stated, I'm the e-waste coordinator at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and for about 14 years did get the lead out, non-lead tackle before that. And then I've moved into, just from having this job, you get all sorts of questions, but working on product stewardship policy for the other items that were listed. But really my big passion right now is making sure that solar panels, that there's an end of life management program for that, because there isn't fully right now. But anyway, for electronics, there's so much to the law, but you're going to get a chance to see what the law is all about. So that's my focus for tonight. All right. So overall, Minnesotans, if you look country, we're pretty good at recycling. There's for sure work to do to meet goals we have, but looking at electronics, this goes back to November 2007, when the law started, there was a free e-waste drop-off at the Mall of America. And kind of like, I think you had an e-waste event within the past year that you had more than you thought was going to come in. Well, it happens like that all the time. So they had 1.2 to 1.5 million pounds come in, 86 trucks. So this made national news back then. And, you know, what was coming in? Why was this law started and so on? Well, we have these good old cathode ray tubes or CRTs that I'm sure might be in the basement, that junk basement potentially that was mentioned. So it has 4 to 8 pounds of leaded glass in there. So, and there's a landfill ban on CRTs, these cathode ray tubes specifically, and mercury containing devices. So this law helped to make sure that there's a way to get this in and keep it out of the landfill. So then you also have the mercury containing devices. We had the flat screens before that had these tubes that have strips, you know, have the mercury in it. So I didn't make sure that that was all handled correctly. So the e-waste law, and we also have paint, for example, of it's called product stewardship, and there's different ways that a product stewardship bill can be written, but the main goal overall here is it's a framework to reduce environmental and health risks posed by the user or disposal of products. So it's a strategy where manufacturers, that's a key word there, and others along the product chain share in the financial and physical responsibility for collecting and recycling products at the end of their useful lives. And a key driver for this is the desire to relieve local government of primary financial responsibility for certain products. And then also a goal is to, if manufacturers are part of this, then they will hopefully look at the design of their products for recyclability and the toxins that they put into it. Product stewardship doesn't always work to get those goals, but you can start to write laws from what we learned to put goals in there, or they get reduced fees and so on if they're doing those steps. So what's covered, looking at the e-waste law that we have, what's covered for households, it's just households in Minnesota. So you can see this covered electronic device definition. That's like the umbrella. And under that, computers, peripherals, fax machines, DVD players, VCRs, video. Oh, and then this VDD is to the middle column, video display devices, which is underneath that definition. So manufacturers have to register with me if they fall under the TV or computer monitor definition. And then those are the only ones, even though that's a majority of what's out there, but for weight, but those are the only ones I have to register. But we collect and report on all of those bullets that I just said there. So computers, you know, these manufacturers, fax machines don't have to register, but it's part of what comes in. We did have a change where VDDs no longer are defined by screen size. We used to say that. Now there's no screen size. And then computer monitor definition in the middle for registration no longer includes laptops or tablet computers. We still collect those manufacturers just don't have to register. We focused some years ago just on what are the major problem materials because of lead and so on. So who's all involved in this that I track? You have collectors, recyclers, manufacturers, retailers. You have me with the PCA that works on this, and then the Minnesota Department of Revenue. Any money goes to them first, and then it's transferred over to the PCA. And collectors, the one on the top left, this is just an example from Dakota County called the recycling zone. You take your car, you drive through and can drop off your devices. The middle should be one of the Hennepin County drop-off sites. I tried to find a picture of that. I've never been to one of their sites. I should to drive through. And then the bottom right is an example with the city of Minneapolis where you can write this on the device and then put it out on certain days for curbside pickup. So that's unique, pretty unique to the city of Minneapolis. And let's see.
Can I ask you a quick question about that?
Sure.
At a church in at 40th and Nicollet. Can we put things on our corner also, like TV, like that, or is it only residential pickup?
Kelly might be able to say, but I'm pretty sure it's just residential.
Yeah, so it's anyone who has City of Minneapolis garbage and recycling collection can set it out at no cost. As a business, you can contact your hauler and see what they would charge you for a pickup. Otherwise, there are other options available to you as well.
Well, thank you. And these folks will report to me on what they collected and where it went for recycling. Then you have the other end, then they're going to send it to a recycler. And the recycling definition can include a recycler who's just doing some dismantling, I would call it. You know, see the screwdriver, just taking some of the casings off of the computer tower, for example. Then recycling is also, some of them have shredders. And so all of that counts under it. And then they would report to me and say, they received this weight from whichever collector, and I look to see that they match. And then they, that shows that it was recycled within a program year. Then you have manufacturers who I mentioned, TVs, computer monitors that register with me as well. And they report their sales. And then I, of course, know how much is collected. And then they receive, we do some math, and they receive an obligation, math according to the law, and they receive an obligation every year. They get a letter that says, based upon these sales and how much was collected, your obligation is, and it can range from hundreds of pounds to millions of pounds, depending upon their size. And then they go call up a recycler, an eligible recycler, and that has eligible pounds, and says, hey, I have 10,000 pounds, is my obligation. Can I buy 10,000 pounds from you? It's all done on paper. It all gets reported to me, so they help pay for some of the end of life. Now you have retailers, and you'll notice here's Best Buy again. They're in Minnesota, so I like to point them out. They have multiple roles in our state. And it's also a brick and mortar physical store. And then you have Amazon, for example. So you have the online, and they have a job in the law that says they can only sell manufacturers that are registered. So if there's this is the online here, shows the list of who's registered. If they're not on there, then the retailers aren't supposed to sell those brands. And Amazon and others over the years have gotten much better. If there's a certain brand that's ceased, then you can put in a zip code in Minnesota and it will state, no, we can't sell this to you. And then we get calls from manufacturers saying, hey, Amazon said they couldn't sell our stuff. How do we get registered? Okay, I know this looks a little confusing, but it's how my mind wanted to show how money flows throughout the program year, which is July 1st to June 30th. So you have the top left here, he's all done with his TV and he takes it to, in Dakota County, the recycling zone, and pays. And it's $10 for a TV, and that's the same for Hennepin County, the two drop-off sites. So pay $10. Well, now Dakota County has to send it to a recycler, and then they have to pay the recycler for that recycling. And I think Washington County is one of the only ones left that doesn't have a fee when you drop it off, but it just comes out of the taxes. So it's paid somehow, of course. And then, so that's one flow there. You go to the bottom right, you have Best Buy. So this is where they're playing the, in this case, a manufacturer role. So they're registered with me and they receive their obligation letter. So, all right, they got to pay some money to that recycler. So the recycler is in the middle. They receive some money from the collector. They receive some money from the manufacturer. And that is to cover the cost of recycling the electronics. Now, not to go in too deep here, and we'll see what Maria touches on, but the collectors are paying, from what we can see with bits and pieces of information, they're paying about 2/3 right now of the cost to recycle, and manufacturers are paying about 1/3. So we believe and feel it's off balance right now. So that's why collectors are looking at how can we change the e-waste law so that the manufacturers are covering more of that cost. Manufacturers do not have to tell us this payment between the two on what they pay for pounds. So we don't really know exactly what's going on. And then they have, manufacturers have to register also. So that's where you see the money going to the Department of Revenue and PCA. If they don't buy pounds to meet their obligation in time by June 30th, then they have a recycling fee. And then we get that money and can use that for grants and from other things like that. And then the bottom left is, so he's all done, recycle his TV, needs a new one. So he's paying the store, for example, and the manufacturer, of course, is making money off of that sale. So that's where those sales come from that I look at for the obligation.
Amanda,
Yeah, is it done?
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Taking too long.
So the recyclers who, they get money from the recycling zone, and they also get money from the manufacturers. But can they then sell the scrap material too?
Yeah.
The recycle. So they're selling the scrap metal that they are recycling too.
They could, yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, because it's pretty expensive to recycle some of that, the TVs and so on. I'll show you some of that end market stuff.
Okay.
Household stuff isn't always worth a lot. So yes, you are right. That would be another way to bring some money in. Good point. Right. And then if stuff is in good enough shape, they can do reuse too. Some of them have that, but household stuff isn't always the best for that. It's usually business stuff that's a little better. So this needs to be updated. Is actually just asked my boss about getting someone at the PCA to redo this map for me, but based on 2017 population data, 96.4% of Minnesota residents live within 15 miles of a registered collection site, which isn't too bad. At this time, I believe there were 6 counties that didn't have a site, like a permanent site. They could have events, but this isn't too bad. But we can always good to try and get more, because we know convenience is what brings people in, is a big reason for people to come in, and what it costs at the end. So I'm going to hope to update this again soon. Collection trends, peak collection of CEDs, that big umbrella, was in around 2014 to 2015. 40 million pounds were brought in, and there's been a steady decline ever since. I'm just going to give like 15 seconds and I'll show some reasons. Why do you think there would be a decline over the years? Just to yourself. From 40 million, and now it's down to around 20. So like half. So we don't 100% know the reasons why, but we had some good educated guesses. People are just removing the material from the waste stream. Those big old CRTs in the basement. It's just coming out, so it's going to go down. And the computer monitors. Things are getting lighter now, so even that heavy stuff could be coming out at the same time. Our devices are all being turned into one. TVs are getting so much lighter. And then we also notice that when it dropped, Best Buy started charging $30. And that it used to be, it was free for a while. So they were getting a lot of weight, and they started charging 20 and 30. So there's a big drop off once they started doing that. So it's probably all of the above. The VDDs, the specifically TVs and monitors, you can see also have dropped off. It used to be 80% of the total. Then 71, pretty recently 63%. So those big guys are coming out. And then at the same time with our law, we have to look at the definitions, because there's new stuff coming in all the time. Here's the mirror. Like, does that count? And which we have decided it counts, because it's a screen and it connects to the internet. So those type of things that come in, we have to figure out as a program here if those count or not. Challenges, end markets. You have lead, mercury, flame retardant plastic, regular plastic. What about those end markets if people want it? There's the embedded batteries, fires that can happen from the batteries. Devices don't last as long, always wanting the latest and greatest, and cheaper to replace than to fix sometimes. It can be tough to fix on your own or even for the stores. And these bullets I had before, can't replace the battery yourself, need a special tool or instructions. But good news, Minnesota passed a Digital Fair Repair Act in 2023. And there was talk just today, as we said earlier, before it started, that looking for a federal bill. So we'll see what happens there. Really quickly, Digital Fair Repair Act in Minnesota. You could see it's going to start next year. And what's in consumer electronics, so smart electronics, watches, cell phones, laptops, appliances, small and large. What's out, medical equipment, those are hard to come in usually. Motor vehicles, that's already covered by Massachusetts. Agricultural equipment is out. It did pass in Colorado, so maybe that will help us out. Heavy equipment, lawn yard tools, power tools, and video game consoles. So that we can watch and see what happens next summer on that. All right, so this is specifically end market challenges for CRTs. Nobody wants that leaded glass. We don't make those big TVs anymore. So it used to go to the TVs, and that's that pink line that just drops. So now that leaded glass is used for in tile, actually, ceramics, mostly in other countries, smelting. The other is putting like cement blocks, for example. So I'd say not the best uses, but that's where it's at right now. Additional products that I mentioned, I'm working on it, solar panels. We touch on wind turbines, carpet, mattresses, packaging, all the end of life stuff to think about we're working on. And I think that's it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Amanda.
So much information.
I know there's, yeah, it's a lot to the lot, but
too. And I'll just ask that everybody holds questions till the end. Yeah, so next up we have Kelly Kish, our recycling coordinator for the city of Minneapolis.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the drop-off and collection programs that we have in the city. Or not drop-off. Well, yeah, there's drop-off. We're all seeing the correct slide. Yes, yes. Thank you for nodding, Carrie. I can see you. But I'm going to dive in a little bit more on the city's battery recycling program that we used to have that we no longer do and why we no longer have that. So for those of you who are unaware who Minneapolis Solid Waste and Recycling is, we are the actual collectors and educators for all 1 to 4 unit buildings in the city. There's also approximately 100 and some neighborhood parks and any small commercial that can get by with just using carts for collection and following a residential pickup schedule, which is the weekly for garbage and organics recycling and every other week for traditional can bottle paper recycling. Many people don't know that our large item collection program is actually a program. I think many people just think I set it outside and it went away, and they don't care any more than the fact that it went away. But it is actually designed in as a permanent program where any resident can set up to 2 large items out on any given week. And note that recyclable items can only go out on the recycling week. So for example, you could have like a wood table, which hopefully would not be usable. You could have a wood table out on your garbage week, or a, broken dresser or something like that. And then recycling week, again, would only be the items that we do physically send a separate truck out to pick them up. You can see a nice truckload there in the top right-hand corner of appliance electronics, hide beds, mattresses, and items that contain a lot of metal. I will also note that the program is designed that the collection crew makes a note of that your item is out. They put one of those lovely little orange stickers on it that says we'll be back. And in theory, a truck would come back the following business day to pick up that item. However, since the pandemic, we have been pretty short-staffed, so sometimes it is taking quite a bit longer for those large items to get picked up. But I will note that so long as it has that sticker on it, it is on our list. If you do want to get rid of an item sooner, you can call our office, request a voucher, and bring it over to the transfer station yourself as well, and there is no charge for that either. So just a couple pictures. Amanda talked about the CRTs, and I will say we do still definitely see them coming in, but it is considerably less than the past. When I first started working for the city 10 years ago, we were filling up a shipping car, so what you would see on a train, every single day of electronics. And because we are sending a separate truck out to pick these items up, when I started at the city, we were really only promoting the bigger items that was worth sending a separate truck to drive and pick up those items. So TVs, computer monitors, computer towers, because computer monitors back in the day were also CRTs as well. So we weren't really promoting a lot of the smaller cables, mice, speakers, stereos, record players, all of those types of other small items. That is something we have changed in past years. And now if you have a box full of those smaller electronic items, we do encourage you to either bring them to one of Hennepin County's drop-off facilities or set them out next to your recycling cart with a label on it, and we will get it on the list for the crew to return to pick them up. So yeah, one full shipping container every single day of electronics was picked up in the city of Minneapolis. Now it's every 2 or 3 days that we're picking up that same amount. And part of the reason for that difference is just the sheer fact that we don't have enough staff right now to have people out doing the collections every single day that we would be otherwise. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, that's a whole lot of air conditioners. And then all of our electronics that we pick up go to the state contracted electronics recycler, which is Dynamic Life Cycle Innovations. And they are down in Onalaska, Wisconsin, where they do fully dismantle all of the residential electronics. They do have a reuse side. And Amanda had mentioned that reuse is typically easier to do on commercial products. And that is their focus on their reuse side or refurbishment side as well. But I went on a tour there not too long ago. I think it was last spring, and it only takes them to take this really big CRT right here. It takes them like 4 minutes to go from this to break it down into about 20 to 30 different material types and categories. So then when you're just left with the CRT tube that goes into a special room that can actually break and evacuate that piece of glass. So it is rendered non-harmful, I think is where I'm going to go with the terming here. Others can jump in if I'm wrong on that. Anyway, so then all of the appliances and things like hide-a-beds and big reclining furniture, we do actually fully dismantle at our shop. And we like to say that hide-a-beds are kind of a 2-for-1 because you get this giant piece of metal or the bunch of metal that's inside, and then you also get a mattress out for recycling. But anything that has a refrigerant in it, so an air conditioner, a refrigerator, all of those, the Freon that's in there is safely evacuated. All of our folks who do any of this large item processing have certifications to be able to safely do that. Note anyone who is picking these, especially the refrigerant items up from the alleyway or curb lines that you would call a scrapper, who is cutting those Freon lines is actually violating the U.S. Clean Air Act, and there is a minimum fine of $2,500 if they are caught doing that. So note that, you know, we do really want these items to be properly processed, so we're not releasing all of those horrible greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. They pull out all the circuit boards. They take out all of the different metals by type. There's a really fun picture, I think, on the next. Oh, did I leave it out? Oh, shoot. Okay, wait, I'm going back to the beginning. Here we go. Here we go. Here is all of the compressors from those air conditioning units, bunch of cords and cables. Okay, sorry. I didn't remember where I put that picture. But you can see here over time, the ebbs and flows. I will note this right axis is actually the batteries. Everyone else over here is on the left-hand side. Consumption overall tends to follow the economy. And when the economy is up, people are buying more things. When the economy is down, people are buying less things. Also, when the economy is down, there are more people out taking or doing illegal scrapping activities out and about. When the recycling program very, very first started back in 1983, the city was actually picking up lead acid batteries at the curb. So those would be the ones you would find in a vehicle or like a kids motorized SUV, or I don't know what those little things are called. But so we used to pick those up way back in the day. And then in that was obviously stopped. But in 1990 is when the collection of household batteries began. And just like everything else, shortly after a program starts and you have the awareness of that program starting, you start to get a lot in, then things kind of start to taper off. And then you see this giant downward drop in 2020. And what happened there is that we had to stop the program. So what we were doing prior to that is Hennepin County had these wonderful battery collection containers in libraries, at city halls. And we, as part of Hennepin County's program, our residents were able to put their batteries in a bag on top of a recycling cart. And we had this like unspoken partnership with Tidy Cats cat litter, because we made these lovely mountings on the sides of the vehicles. And all the batteries would go into this cat litter pail. And each day, each recycling crew would pick up approximately 10 pounds of batteries. And about 75% of them were alkaline, which are non-hazardous. But that other 25% are going to be the rechargeables, some of which I'm sure you've heard now. And Amanda did mention that lithium ion batteries start fires. And so what happened is one of those big battery bins at a Hennepin County library. Thankfully, this happened during working hours, but the staff at the facility noticed smoke coming out of the container. And they were able to push it outside the door because it was on wheels. And the firemen came and, properly make sure it was extinguished. And when they really dug through it, it was an electronic cigarette where the little button was being pushed in by some other battery in the bin. So it was continuously running the battery, and all it had done was started melting the plastic casing on the outside of the battery. It was not an actual battery fire, but it was too close for comfort. And the county said, nope, we're done. And within a matter of, I want to say 3 days, they had every single battery bin out of every place in the public they were, and they told us we had to shut our program down immediately. And once you open the floodgates on something goes in recycling, or you do this activity, it takes a lot of re-education and a lot of training to turn that off. So it took us a little bit of time to actually be able to do that, and I'll jump into that in a second. But so this article on the bottom here actually was in May of 2023, where a garbage truck had to go find a parking lot and dump in because it was on fire, and it was from a battery. This article in 2019 actually came out, I think it was right after the DEMCON transfer station in Minnesota completely burned to the ground because a battery caught fire after hours and there was nobody there to see or do anything about it. So just to note that it's not just in a recycling container, it could be in a garbage truck, it could be at a facility, and replacing that infrastructure is so incredibly costly and takes so much time that properly managing electronics and batteries is critically important for our waste infrastructure as a whole. So back to the education, we mailed out a postcard to all of our customers within a couple of weeks of Hennepin County shutting down their program, telling us we had to shut ours down. And we stopped collecting any batteries as of January 1 of 2020. Hennepin, Ramsey, and Washington counties all went together and created this lovely Be a Battery Hero campaign to try and continue to encourage folks to properly handle all their batteries, which is when all of the messaging around please tape any of your rechargeable batteries on both the positive and the negative terminals, or put them in an individual plastic bag before bringing them to a drop-off facility, really started coming out. And just a quick overview, alkaline and rechargeable, they can all come in AA, they can all come in AAA, they can all come in C and D. Only if they say on them, are they alkaline, are they non-hazardous and can go in the trash. Any of those that are rechargeable, or even if they're a single use lithium or lithium ion battery, those all do need to go to a drop-off facility. And Hennepin County or any of the Twin Cities metro counties do have facilities that will take these batteries. Call to Recycle has a locator tool as well, where there are some like hardware stores and other retail locations you can bring them as well. And then what we found in 2022, we sorted residential garbage, recycling, and organics from 700 single family homes. And very happy to say that there were very, very few batteries that we found overall. So in the garbage, we had, it was about 0.1%. Nope. So wait, hold on. Yes. Garbage was 0.1% batteries total. So that's great. And recycling was at 0.0%. So they found 1 or 2, but not enough to even register as a partial 0.1%. And we found 0 batteries whatsoever in the organics. So that is also great. And of the batteries found, you can see at the bottom here, only 1.2% of them were rechargeable. So that lets us know that, or it gives us a hint that people are doing the right thing with the batteries that they collect or that they have at their home. We did also do a voluntary survey of the homes that were randomly selected to participate in that capture rate study. And what we found from folks when we asked them what was their most common disposal method, you can see that the drop-off, the gray bars, was the highest for both. Well, actually, that's not true. Drop-off, thankfully, is the highest for how people were managing their rechargeable batteries, followed, unfortunately, then by the garbage. I'm not going to even acknowledge the not applicable. Well, I guess other. I don't know what else they're doing with them. Maybe the junk drawer is the other category there. But alkaline batteries, the highest response was people were putting them in the trash.
It must be the junk basement, don't you think?
I know, right? Yeah, the junk drawer, junk basement, totally. And I will say that question was kind of hard for me because I actually just brought all of my everything to one of Hennepin's drop-off facilities like 2 weeks ago, but they do live in a junk drawer until they go to, or the junk basement area until they go to the drop-off site. And Hennepin County got some stats from them at their 4 hazardous waste events that were held out in the community this year, 2 of which were in Minneapolis. They collected about 4,000 pounds of batteries. And at their permanent facilities, they had 106,000 pounds of batteries, or 53 tons, and 678 tons of electronics. So still lots of material coming in, and we were really happy to see, I didn't even say, of electronics in our capture rate study, about 1% of what was in the trash was classified as an electronic item, and 0.2% of what was in recycling carts were electronics. So we are really happy to see that people are managing electronics and batteries in the right way, but we do, again, know that there are still opportunities for improvement. So some of our next steps, obviously we need to get people to know that our large item collection program is actually a program and care about the where it went and not just that it went away. We continue to promote all of the drop-off options, and of course, higher up even than that would be the reuse and the repair options like Buy Nothing and the Fix-It clinics for sure. All of the other things that Andrea mentioned early on here in the meeting. And I've been trying to get the fire stations to be drop-off sites for batteries for a couple of years now. Because you think if there's going to be a fire, or there's a chance that there could be a fire, where better for that to happen than at one of our drop-off or at a fire station, because they would be most equipped to handle it. Unfortunately, the fire chief does not love that idea. But I'm going to continue working on it since they are, you know, I think most fire stations still have like blood pressure monitors, right? Or the cuffs, so you can go in and test your. So if they're gonna do those types of wonderful things for the community, they should also consider being a drop-off site for a couple items. So I'm going to continue working on that. And then we also recently received a $4 million grant from the US EPA to turn our old field office building, or the North Transfer Station, into a new residential drop-off site. So for those of you who are aware of our voucher program at the South Transfer Station, where you can bring electronics, extra garbage, building materials, mattresses, etc. The North Transfer Station, especially with this grant, one, is feasible, but two, is a bigger space and we'll be able to collect more materials. There's going to be more abilities for items to be set aside for reuse. And batteries and bulbs are two of my highest categorized items that we do not currently take at the South Transfer Station, that will be prioritized here at this new facility too, along with reuse of like furniture items. So that's incredibly exciting that we were one of, I want to say, 26 communities across the United States selected to receive some of that grant funding. So it is estimated that it will be open in 2026, assuming all goes to plan. But we know how construction plans go. And we will be doing a lot of community engagement and outreach in North Minneapolis prior to even fully deciding what materials will be accepted for sure, and the layout and all of those types of things too. So lots more fun to come, and thank you for having me here today, and thank you for helping always promote all of the wonderful programs that you have, and also information from our office as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. And I will actually wait. I'll have people wait for questions until we have go. Also, Kelly, just like the ever creative ideas that you have for waste reduction, it never ceases to amaze me. Thank you so much for being here. All right, so Maria Jensen is up next, and she is the Recycling Electronics for Climate Action representative. She started her career in e-waste recycling industry after graduating with a master's in global health with research related to mercury contamination from e-waste, which is a continuation of what Kelly was just talking about. She's also providing us education and advocacy work around e-waste management in Minnesota with Recycling Electronics for Climate Action, or RECA. Maria.
Hi, and I'm aware of the time. Are we supposed to be done here at 8 o'clock, or?
Nope, we've got some time.
Okay.
I think we said 8:15, so we'll still have time. I think we should go.
Great.
You've got a lot to share. I love it.
All right. Okay. So bear with me. I'm going to be kind of sliding between two different tabs here because I don't have an extra monitor right now. Here we go. I don't think I need to go too much into the definition of e-waste because I feel like that's been pretty well covered. But e-waste is kind of informally what we call an electronic product that's at its end of its useful life and can't be repaired. Another way of kind of describing it is anything with a cord, a battery, or a circuit board. Or you could say a device that's powered by electricity. Lots of different ways to go about defining it. These are just some examples. I know we've talked about a lot of these today, but some things that we don't generally think about: survey equipment, medical devices, MP3 players, and then of course your laptops, desktops, things like that. So there we go. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Or not? Yes. Okay. Interesting that I can't see it when I switch back to the Zoom, but So are you seeing it right now, the presentation, or not?
Yes. Yes, I see the negative impact of electronic waste.
Great.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm seeing as well.
Okay. It wasn't like that when I tested it out today. I could see it myself, but yeah, so e-waste is also toxic. There's quite a bit of toxic material in there. And if it isn't handled properly, like if it goes to a landfill or an incinerator, it has potential to pollute the environment and also our bodies, right? So one of the main things are heavy metals, and those are kind of over to the right there. You see lithium, barium, mercury, lead, chromium, cadmium. And then your kind of your alphabet soup with your PFAS, your particulate matter and CO2 that can be released, especially if those things are burned. If they're going into landfills, we have a pretty big problem with landfill leakage here in Minnesota. So then the kind of pollution you would see is this material going into the groundwater, into the soil, affecting our crops and potentially being eaten by the animals that we eat, or by going into the crops that we eat directly. If this material ends up in an incinerator, then it's going into the air and can be inhaled directly. E-waste is really also very shadowed by global inequality. Before we implemented bans on exporting and had certifications for the industry. If you've ever heard of e-stewards or R2, this is an industry certification that basically is saying you're not exporting this material, you're properly handling it, etc. But before those basically actions were implemented, a lot of our e-waste was getting dumped in places like Uganda, which I believe that's where this photo was taken. And in those dump sites, basically it was feeding in an informal economy where folks are extracting the valuable material in very unsafe ways, and oftentimes children were engaged in this labor too, exposing them to very, very high levels of this material. Since then, we have reduced how much we're sending out of the country, but unfortunately, we still haven't quite figured out how to collect and process all of this material properly. We collect about 24% of our electronic waste here in Minnesota, which is actually much higher than the national average, which is 15%. And this is just a picture of the Minneapolis or the Herc incinerator in Minneapolis, and just a picture of some electronics going into our incinerator, which of course isn't supposed to happen, but inevitably some material gets in there, since we're only collecting about 1/4 of this waste stream for recycling. When this material is ending up in our trash and our recycling, it has large impacts on the waste industry. This is a picture, actually, Kelly mentioned the DEMCON facility, and I got this slide from their the president of DEMCON companies. And he also works for NWRA, National Waste and Recyclers Association, something like that. And they report that nationally, we are losing 3% of our recycling infrastructure every year to lithium-ion battery fires, which is just like a very, very unsustainable trend. And it's happening more and more frequently every year, with increase in like rechargeable devices being purchased. I think we talked a little bit about, or Kelly mentioned those e-cigarettes. They're making those more and more these days, and they even have the ones that are not even rechargeable. They're just disposable, right? So you buy this e-cigarette with a rechargeable battery in it, but it doesn't have a charging port. And so people think that it's just going to go into the trash, right? So that's what they do with it. They throw it in the trash, and then it ends up either in a landfill, and it goes in our hauling trucks and can cause a fire. A lot of waste professionals are reporting too that they're having a lot of trouble getting insured, because insurance companies really don't want to insure a place that might burn down, right? Locally, landfill operators report that they have what they call a spot fire every couple of days. So that means basically a battery is starting on fire, smoldering, or getting hot in their landfill, and they have to go out and to that spot and they have to put it out. Unfortunately, sometimes these spot fires happen when there's nobody on the clock, or in some area where it isn't seen right away, and it can cause huge fires. Like we saw May 22nd this year, I believe, in Rice County, there was a very large fire that they believe was caused by a battery, and it burned the size of a football field, and it was 30 feet deep. And that went on for about a week. And when they reported on this, they said, we assume it was a lithium ion battery. It's not that they necessarily found that battery, like they located, oh, here's what caused the fire. They're just making this assumption because they know that that's what causes fires in landfills today. It's that common that that's just the assumption that they're going to make because it's happening so frequently. This is a brand new trailer from St. Louis County that was damaged by a battery fire. And when this happens, it's extremely dangerous for their staff. Like somebody mentioned, they have to go to a parking lot and dump all this material out of their truck and try to put it out. And it's just a very, very stressful, dangerous emergency. There was just, in 2021, the EPA did a report on lithium ion batteries. And basically what they did was they just took data from the fires at waste facilities that were reported in the news. So if they got big enough to be reported in the news, they got captured by the study. And they looked at 253 fires from the year 2020. And they also talked to a handful or a sampling of MRFs, which is municipal recycling facilities. And 22% of those MRFs said that they had experienced at one point an employee injury from a lithium ion battery fire. And so kind of thinking about those landfill fires that are happening from batteries and asking ourselves, like, what's the air quality impact from this? In Poland, they asked that exact question and did a study about it, and they showed that from just one large landfill fire, 6.5 million people were exposed to higher than normal levels of PM10 or particulate matter. It's just a size of particulate matter that they studied. And that was just from one large landfill fire, of which they had 79 in the country that year. Of course, Poland is not the US, it's more densely populated, but it's just kind of shows how extensively these fires can pollute the air and affect our health. And then this is, back to the DEMCON fires. This is a total loss of their building. And I believe that building was only a few years old when it burnt down. Just kind of switching gears a little bit to some good news. Myself and a group from northern Minnesota and with help from a Macalester College professor, we tried to answer the question, if we could recycle 100% of our e-waste stream, what would that look like? And specifically in precious metals like copper and silver and gold, right? How much value would that be, and how much of all the different types of metals would be available if theoretically we could recycle 100%? So here are some results, and they're just basically ranked by value. Palladium being our top, platinum, gold, copper, and to the right is the value that they represent in our waste stream in Minnesota every single year, right? And total, that's over $3 billion worth of metals. And so kind of our next question was, okay, so if we could theoretically collect 100% of this material and extract all of the metals, what does that look like? And how would it affect our economy here in Minnesota? So it's 78 million pounds of metals, $3.2 billion annual value. And if we processed all of this material here in Minnesota, we could create almost 2,000 jobs in just the collection, the recycling, and like the shredding process. And that's it, actually, not the final recovery. And the silver that's present in this waste stream every year is enough to manufacture almost 500,000 solar panels every year, and the copper is enough for 155,000 EV or electric vehicles. So I would like to show you kind of what this process looks like if it's happening properly. What does proper recycling of electronic waste look like? 1 second. And I'm not putting a plug in for this company. They just made a really good video of what the process looks like. See if I can get it to play.
Let's get into what we do as an electronics recycler from the perspective of a laptop discarded at the end of its service life. Our role begins with collection. We help to coordinate packing and shipping of the items that will be coming to us in the most efficient way possible to help reduce our carbon footprint. Once the equipment makes it through our doors, it's tagged and inventoried into our system. From there, items are sorted into categorized streams to ensure that each type of material is handled appropriately. This is a large part of what an electronic recycler does behind the scenes, and it's at this stage that our laptop comes into the picture once discovered by our sorting team. Because laptops are among many data-containing devices, they're given special attention to ensure that all data and storage devices are removed and sanitized. Now that our laptop has been cleared of any personal data, we have our first opportunity to complete the life cycle. Items that are relatively new and free of heavy cosmetic or functional damage are refurbished or repaired and reintroduced back into the market whenever possible. Reuse is considered first, as it's the simplest and often most cost-effective form of recycling. Unfortunately, our laptop is beyond its usable life, and it's also showing some signs of heavy wear. It's effectively scrap at this point. Scrap material that's not suitable for reuse will be dismantled into the basic components used to manufacture it. Our laptop will be demanufactured by hand and sorted by the separate metals, boards, and plastics originally used to create it. Other items from the same load could be shredded, sheared, or otherwise processed into raw commodities using specialized equipment. Once we've collected enough of our processed raw materials, they'll be shipped to partner facilities that specialize in each specific commodity we've generated. For example, the plastics are sent to a plastics recycler who further segregates by type and color to be granulated. Metals like steel, aluminum, and copper are taken in by metal yards who accumulate them in massive volumes. They're then shipped to a smelter to be refined and ultimately become ingots for use in future products. Circuit boards are sent to specialized smelters that use thermal energy to recover the precious metals found in the circuits and components. For all specialty recyclers, the end goal is the same: to create a clean, raw material that can be sold back to manufacturers to begin the life cycle all over again. Maybe our laptop's plastic casing will become the bezel to a new smartphone. The metals could contribute to new electric vehicles, and the precious metals could find practical or ornamental use. No matter the application, these efforts help to reduce our dependence on finite, raw material that needs to be harvested, refined, and shipped at an increasing cost to our environment.
I will just say there, it really makes it sound like the plastics are really quite circular as well, but honestly, for e-waste, that's really not true. Those plastics are very jam-packed with like brominated flame retardants and lots of other chemicals. So most recyclers don't want anything to do with that plastic, but the metals are very circular, as metals are in general. You can melt them down and use them almost infinitely. It's just a matter of extracting it, and you cannot get 100% of the metals out of the material because it is a very complex process. So not to paint too rosy of a picture, the video kind of does that, but it does show really, really nicely how that process works in general. And it is the best option for, like you mentioned at the beginning of the video, if your electronic device is no longer usable or fixable, it is the next best option above landfilling or incinerating.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That video really it really answered a lot of the questions that people had sent in prior to the start of the presentation. So I appreciate you showing us that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much
I'm
for
aware
doing
of time
that.
here. I'm just going to
Yeah.
mention our 100% collection initiative. Amanda talked a lot about our current 2007 program for funding the collection of electronic devices. And I mentioned, you know, we are collecting a lot of electronics here in Minnesota, but it's only about 24% of the total waste stream, which is for typical electronics, it's about 133 million pounds every year. And so our initiative is basically let's try to take that program and scale it up and cover all electronic devices and not exclude any types of electronics, and define our covered electronics as anything powered by electricity or one of these definitions that can capture the whole waste stream, so that we can actually try to get to 100% collection.
Well, that's fantastic.
And I know we're at time, so.
Well, we are at time, but in the interest of time, I know that there were a couple of questions that maybe weren't necessarily answered. One of them being, what's the difference between what the city of Minneapolis does and what Repowered does with electronics? Maybe
Yeah,
Kelly
I
can
can.
answer. Yeah. Maybe,
Go ahead.
yeah. Any of you jump in.
Oh,
Well, all I can say is
I can answer. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, all I'm gonna say is the city just does the collection, and we work with the state contracted electronics recycler. So we could work with Repowered, but for ease of everything, we work with the recycler who is on the state contract.
And then
wanna
another
add to that?
question is, I often hear it gets tossed into the trash anyway, so you might as well put it in the trash. What would be your response to that?
When you send it to a recycler? Yeah, Amanda,
When
go
you
ahead.
send it to the trash. Yeah.
Oh, well, there definitely is a landfill ban on CRTs and mercury containing devices, so that would be against the law, but I think that we've shown well, you could take it a couple ways. If you look at what Kelly and I showed, that there is a lot of electronics collected, but some does make it to the trash, I guess. But if it's collected, the law says if it's collected for recycling, it has to be recycled. So that I can state. Maybe that's the strongest statement to state. So Minnesota does have that law. So if they're collecting it, and I know a lot of this goes probably back to the plastic talk and what comes your recyclables, your blue bin stuff, but even that, if that's taken, if it's collected for recycling, it should be recycled. Yes.
And I don't know if everybody saw within the chat, Carrie had asked just about alkaline batteries. Are we supposed to collect them and bring them to a drop-off point, or is the trash okay? And Kelly responded that putting alkaline batteries in the trash, you can do that. They'll be recycled if you bring them to a Hennepin County drop-off site, but alkaline batteries are non-hazardous. So I think the biggest takeaway was those lithium-ion batteries are the ones that are causing the fires. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be attempting to recycle all of the batteries.
I would agree.
The alkaline batteries are recyclable though. So I would say take it to your site and have them be collected.
Absolutely. And if you have the means, I don't know, I utilize Ridwell, and they collect batteries for you and we'll bring them to the appropriate sites.
So it comes down to the right, or having more vendors or companies associated to actually doing the recycling, and maybe even specializing a little bit more, rather than doing a global collection of electronics, that they actually specialize in certain components of those electronics so that they can be better efficiently recycled. Right now, I know that Repowered is actually working on collecting all electronics, and we're dealing with a lot of the plastics, and that's what I mean. I just had a customer here recently want to sell us, or not sell us, wants us to pick up a bunch of paper towel dispensers, where they have a microchip in there, and they're battery operated, for the paper now, to dispense the paper. Well, more than 90% of that is plastic. We're not going to really be gainfully, gaining anything from gathering all that plastic in just this small little card of a board. But we've got to still understand that that plastic is a real key factor in the landfill. I think that what I've even stressed to some of my customers that I speak to on the phone is that, I'd really like to be a responsible, recycler, and ask that you please bring it in nonetheless. And some are balking at the cost, but it's predominantly plastics that we're dealing with. And I don't know how to go about fighting that battle when really, truthfully, you're right. Many of those plastics aren't even recyclable. And so we got to fight and find vendors downstream that actually can and will do something with them.
I just want to, Don, who's talking right now, actually works for Repowered. So we stacked our audience with a secret expert.
Yes, I do. And I think it's really important, though, to understand that I get calls constantly requesting air conditioners and appliances like dehumidifiers and such, that they want to have them picked up, and I have to turn them down. And so what I've started to do is I've started to go out onto the Hennepin website and try to help them find their county site and where they can actually dispose of those items efficiently. So I'm not really caring so much about the bottom dollar for Repowered in some cases. I'm actually looking at trying to be responsible to forward that person to the right place to get rid of that item. And so I think that's the other thing that really has to come down to, not worried about the finances of it all, but just being concerned for the environment and assisting the customers in their best capability, or at my best capability.
Yeah, no, and we really appreciate that. Somebody had mentioned earlier that there is a website where you can look up.
I don't know of that. I do know that I go to the Hennepin site an awful lot, and it offers me some answers to these residents of Hennepin County that are asking me, can I bring my computer up to you, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, and I'm always asking them to be responsible because of our NAID certifications, and our too. So as has been stated earlier, I think that it's really important that they understand that we're charging a little bit more only to cover our costs as a NAID certified vendor for recycling. They may not totally understand that and such, but from the standpoint of information technology right now, that's going to become real critical. I mean, with the small little SD cards that we're getting in these phones and such, we've got to cover the bases to ensure that that data is actually being scrubbed and or destroyed. And then comes the batteries. The batteries right now for us is a major issue. I can see it from coming in fresh and new into the industry. I'm seeing a man sitting at a table taping both sides of the battery manually. And you're talking these button batteries and there's thousands of them. And in order for us to actually evacuate or actually distribute or to ship these batteries, we have to do that. We actually have to cover that.
Awesome.
It's expensive.
And yeah, we really appreciate all that information, Don. Kelly actually did put a link in the chat to where she directs people.
Well,
in-
can I, so
in
that's
those topics.
that's where I direct
Okay,
businesses.
thank you, Kelly.
Yep. So residents, and Hennepin County's got their green disposal guide for residents of Hennepin County as a whole. City of Minneapolis, we also have our own online searchable guide for people who have city collection service. But that link right there, I use all the time for other city departments or other businesses looking to get rid of batteries and bulbs and all sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that link.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody coming today, all of your expertise and information. It also leaves room for lots of questions. We are going to post the recording of the video in addition to the chat, and we will have the Q&A on there as well if anybody wants to further explore that. But we will call it an evening for now, and we really appreciate everybody coming and joining us on this lovely Thursday afternoon.